Verse Article 9. 1. Should always sell the beams of his house. Each friend has a spark of love of others, but the spark cannot ignite the light of love to shine in everyone. So they agreed that by uniting all, the sparks would become one big flame. Again, each friend has a spark of love of others, but the spark cannot ignite the love and light to shine in everyone. So they agreed that by uniting all, the sparks would become a big flight. Yes, dear friends, we all have a spark of love in our hearts. That's why we're here, because the Creator brought us here. We're ending the preparation to an up and coming Congress. So let's right now, in this time, unite our hearts together in that spark of love and enter the silent workshop. Let's unite all our sparks into one big flame of love. Again, let's unite all our sparks into one big flame of love. Lime. Dear friends, the first part we will study a lesson from Rava from 2002. It's on the article, what is do not add and do not take away in the work from Raresh. You can find it in the Rabash writings or on the link in the study materials. We have 55 minutes. We are going to move to the lesson from August 18th, 2002. We heard the article, what is do not add and do not take away in the work. This is from portion, do not add and do not take away, meaning to go in balance between two lines. To not to add or subtract is not a matter of quantity or power or you. No, don't run too fast. Or don't be lazy. Don't be idle. So don't add or subtract means always keep yourself balanced. What does it mean, balanced? To cause the action of the middle line to allow the Creator to make a correction on you. How? To be on the right line. That's first. And to make sure first of all to be on the right line and not to allow anything from the left line to overpower and control you. To be on the right line means the right line means the importance of spirituality. That spirituality, the goal, the qualities of bestow, the Creator, which is a force of bestow, is not just something really, but a force of bestow. That's how to interpret it, that this will be important to me. And then if it's important, then to go to the left line, the right line, that importance is received only above reason. We don't attain it within reason. Within reason, we can attain the importance of spirituality beyond the barrier. This is called complete faith, the light of with illumination of below the barrier in our state. There we have as though a branch from that root, the faith. We also have a state where as if we have the correction of faith, meaning that as though we feel in our organs that there is presence of the Creator, and that as if is attained especially through the effort in the society. When we complete this work, when we acquire in the work on the right line faith, according to our path to our degree, what is faith? Then we move to the left line and we see that within reason we got nothing. The qualities are not corrected. Where thoughts are foreign, loneliness with respect to the right line. Then we come to a prayer that the Creator will help. If I have prepared the right line, the importance of spirituality and the goal and the faith in that all was set out for me, and I've seen on the left line that I, myself, and the opposite of that, I'm not in wholeness, rather in deficiencies and loneliness. And as a result of that, from these two lines comes the fat power of prayer. Then from above, there is an answer of the prayer, the middle line. And in this work, we always have to be in balance between the right and the left, so that one's wisdom will not be greater than his acts, meaning that he won't enter a state where he says, I'm not capable of doing anything, or I have no strength, or everything is in God's hands, so nothing depends on me, and so forth, meaning just to not have more left line than the right, that I have no power and know nothing and can't be, and so on, or the right line, that everything is in the hands of heaven. The Creator sets up everything, and who am I here? I just nullify, and I'm always under his control. This is called the shell of the right line. No, both these lines have to be balanced. This was given to us, and we shouldn't fall to these two shells, the shell of the right, the shell of the left. Rather, balance the two lines in such a way that they generate the middle line, where middle line itself actually doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a third thing. There's the qualities of the Creator, the right line, that appear towards the created being, and the qualities of the created being that appear towards the created being, and that's the left line. And the middle line is the correction to what extent the created being can be compatible to the Creator. The Creator does that through the light that reforms. And so a person who arranged these two lines correctly at one shall not subtract nor add, then the middle line arranges in him and forms in him. And this is what's called human man, because the qualities of the Creator and the qualities of the created being, they are not called man. These qualities are not us. It's two angels. The bad qualities are not us. And the good qualities of the Creator are not ours as well. We are the preparation for the middle line, and the middle line that we will later acquire through our status. So a person needs to carefully see the reward and punishment and labour and everything that happens. And so that what he's working on is not his qualities. He has to work on how to separate from the qualities of the Creator and the qualities of the created being, to stand outside the both of them and over the appearance of both of them, to do the work of nor to add not subtract. If he's under their control of the cruel qualities of the Creator or the created being, he cannot cause the situation for the middle line to come. And so he has to look at these two qualities of right and left as two angels, two forces given to him from above equally. Both his nature is not his, and the right line, the nature of the Creator, also certainly isn't his. Not to be influenced, not to be tied to any line, rather to have his point as neutral between them. And that's where he begins, meaning not to allow himself to be under the influence of any one line. That's no longer the human. This is called nature, nature of reception or nature of bestow. The work can only be in the middle line, even if I'm just one point, just the beginning, the point in the heart. But this point is between two lines, right and left. Both of them don't belong to me. As it says, go to the craftsman who made me the right line, and there's none else besides him. The left line or the other way around. Any questions? Yes. You. If he has, it says that both of them need to be balanced. One line and all together. What if the two lines are balanced? Then how to start with one line? Start with the right line, meaning from my place, from where I am. Who am I? What am I? If I just think about myself as having no connection to spirituality, then the I is just a will to receive, that wants to enjoy all kinds of things. And so I can research myself and be a good psychologist or physiologist and just observing nature. Am I included in nature? So, that's nature. Fine. Nature could be the left line if I relate to it that way, but otherwise it's not a line. It's just nature. If I want to relate to all of reality in a conscious, spiritual way, then I have to position the I as totally not connected to the Creator or the created being, but in the middle between them, to be completely neutral, me, uninfluenced by anything, to observe myself, the beastly nature that I identified with before, to see it from the side, to observe what I have is how I was born, that's my qualities, that's what I thought of as me. I look at this, and who is me? It's some sort of body with all kinds of qualities and all kinds of thoughts. The qualities were given to me by the Creator from birth. The thoughts and all of my understandings were given by family, environment, school, all the people around me. Is that me? That's not me. Where is me? Where can I truly see who is me? From the moment where I now revealed it. From now on, I want to build myself. So, let's build it. How can I build my I? All that there is in me is not me. What I receive from the Creator is also not me. It's Him. So, where is the I? The I of the person. We don't know what is the middle line. The I of the person is a deficiency that never existed in reality, as if an artificial deficiency, a deficiency to bestow to the Creator. The Creator didn't create this deficiency. He didn't create it. A person has to come up with it. So when I position myself on the right line now, I need to determine, what am I going to do? So first I'm told you have to go to the right line. What is the right line? To see who you're dealing with. What is the nature of the Creator? Great whole, bestowing. Want to give you a reward for all kinds of actions. Research all those things. Acquire faith in that. What does it mean to acquire faith in that, as though you have the feeling of greatness and importance, as though, but you know, you're doing it as if it's like that. You're not deceiving yourself. You're working on a force, that as if you deceive yourself as if it's there. But that deceit, you're writing it down as if you're registering that you're doing it deliberately, like Rabash writes, as though you feel in your organs that you came to the sensation of the Creator, the sensation of importance, greatness, adhesion, as though you're already in spirituality. If you have acquired this feeling, you've worked on yourself, doesn't matter how you call it. Then go to the left and see what you can do with the left. You'll discover on the left, of course, the opposite state. Who am I? What am I? Meaning the nature, the Creator rooted in me, that I'm nothing and no one, and so forth. From these two things, to combine them in such a way that will form a prayer, so that not one or the other will be greater, so there will be a uniform deficiency, that this deficiency will be that I, myself, am a deficiency and I want to be like you in wholeness. This is called that in your prayer two things are connected together. Two lines together, the deficiency, the feeling of the bad, the recognition of loneliness, on the right line, and recognition of the Creator and the recognition of the good. That's on the right line, the other, the deficiency, on the left. So if you've connected both of them correctly, you have both of them at a maximum intensity, as they complete each other and no one controls the other. This means you've come to a true prayer, meaning you have to make sure they're in a correct merging and the maximum intensity you're capable of. Then it is called prayer, and for that prayer you receive something called middle line. What is the middle line? I don't know. It is something new that is born, meaning to compose a prayer within me, I can, but to receive the answer to the prayer, that is something from above that I never had before. When I receive that from above, I receive a vessel of the soul from above, meaning spiritual desires that belong to me, not to the Creator, the right line, and not to the left line, the created being, the nature that I was, but rather that is new. It is the true I, my share in the spiritual world, the beginning of the soul, a new vessel. And that's how the human starts growing. This vessel is the I of man. And then these two lines, he looks at them and relates to them as two angels, two parameters, two forces of nature, the nature of the Creator and the nature of the created being, that he was given to use correctly, to merge correctly, and so as to give birth to something third. The middle line is a third thing that didn't exist before. It's only something that the human gives birth to. Of course, the Creator does that through the light, but the deficiency has to come from man. Feeling that deficiency, recognizing the deficiency, the preparation has to be from the side of man. Until that exists in man, it cannot be born. So the vessel that is born in the middle line is something that was completely non-existent in reality. And there the created being feels this is me independent. It is the screen and reflected light, this vessel, and that is truly me. But he feels that this is me, and this I is actually desires of bestowed to resemble the desires of the Creator. And there's no shame there. There's no unpleasantness, no sense of loneliness, nothing. All of the negative feelings are not about the I of the person. It's the deficiency of the left line that is given to us to begin with. It's not us. It's what the Creator created as existence from absence, only for us to be assisted by it to see the opposite of the Creator. And what is the choice of man? Man's choice is to reach the right measure of right and left, so that the prayer will be created. What is a prayer? So that a deficiency will be made, that upon which we can receive an answer from above, where the light that comes from above to this deficiency. Then from this deficiency, the correct cleave is created a screen and reflected light, and this screen and reflected light is already a cleave which we can start working on his own. Okay, this condition of prayer, you said that on the one hand there has to be a very great deficiency, on the other hand what? Faith adhesion, what's the other side? Whether these two ends, both ends, the middle, the point in the heart is neutral, it's the beginning of the middle line, it's always against the light is always in the middle line, and the two ends are the qualities of the Creator on the right side, and the qualities of the creating seemingly. qualities of the creatings. Yes, left. Meaning these two forces, bestow and reception, were given to you so that you, and the correct qualification or connection between them, within you. You can take as much as you can from the right line compared to what you can take from the left line to do the right merging, so that you're not influenced by one or the other, but rather be under the awareness of why I need these forces in me in order to reach the goal. Only in such a way I take them, otherwise I don't need them, not in the quality enough to bestow, and I don't need and there's no qualities that are enough to receive, and we don't need if I take them without a calculation, the purposeful calculation. I find myself in the right keeper or the left keeper, the shell, and then I take them, and I stand in the middle where and want to reach a middle line. The middle line is called that I'm operating, and now I'm making a connection right and left to the creator upon which I want to reach. And all of these are one point connected, and then it's considered that I'm truly building in this correct action, the middle line. This is what's written in the letters from Balaam. Yes. So what is the correct merger? The correct merging or merger is where I take the qualities of the creator and the qualities of the created being, so that the created being will upon them come to the creator. What is he in the final correction? All the right line and all the left line. Everything that's revealed in them will be now together. And now what do I do now? I take from them a certain measure that I will be able to build for correction, for the request for correction, to how to understand that this is correct. On the one hand says here, how exactly to do this. He tells you to be to start with. You need to connect them together in your qualities of who I am, what I am, and the qualities of the creator, who and who is he and what is he, and your current action needs to be that both of them should be together. Try now to heart, and you will see what clashes you have within you, explosions, and that this already begins as the accumulation, the creation of the force of the prayer. The fact that you see that you cannot connect them, and you are trying to connect them, that is already a prayer. The prayer is not that you composed it and everything, and I thank God I'm controlling the situation and know all these things that precede it also. He said that in the deficiency to bestow, there's no sense of loneliness. The question is whether there is a sense of wholeness, or the feeling is not connected at all. In the desire to bestow, there's also a deficiency of itself for a person not to fall to the shell of the right, the keeper. In everything there's a reason why they say that they need to be in the correct intermingling, in the merger of the two lines. Every line is dangerous in the qualities that a person can truly be under his qualities and then enter to a state that seems to him that he's in wholeness. Every line can give wholeness of its own. What is a shell? A shell is where you enter a certain one direction, and that you there is not what's important. What's important is that when you are there, you feel yourself as being in the correct state, in the whole state, and then you don't have any preparation, no possibility of exiting. Yes, Mashi, the importance of the creator is always above reason or within reason. The importance of the creator is always above reason, because I don't have in what to, or how should we say this, to in what way to see him or feel him, or checking that I'm filled by this in my organs. Rather I can receive him in importance from the friends and then use it, but for that I need to invest in the friends, for then it comes as a force that can be used. And after the importance a person acquires where he receives the feeling of the creator. So this brings him importance, which is truly called faith. The force to bestow from that he receives, and then he even has the possibility to receive in order to bestow when he has complete faith, where the faith already, the importance of the creator comes to being realized. Okay, yes, what is the shell of the right exactly? The shell of the right are the thoughts that tell you that you're fine, that you're whole, that you did good things. Then you should suffice certainly in what you are. Let's say that that's the right. What does it say? That only half an hour for a person on the left, being for half an hour on the left line, and all the rest of the right line is actually showing us how much we are in a problem of emerging from the right line, meaning to swallow, to receive the impression about the importance of the creator, the importance of the goal, and the work about he is good, that does good, and does want our exertion, and so on. There's many things here. Yes, meaning truly half an hour against 23, and 1/2 hours. How can you really say now I'm on the right line, now I'm on the left line? How does one know? If a person cannot do the correct merging in the work between right and left, then he doesn't control himself, and he's always under his nature just called to be between right and left on the sling somehow, and he's thrown to the right, and he says it's so good. And then he sees those who are seen to be crazy or what sometimes the opposite. And they're sometimes despaired, who am I? What am I? And nothing is worth it, so he's is not in this, and he's not in that, meaning he's never him. He's either the nature of the Creator or nature, under the nature of the Creator being, two angels that are controlling him. So, he's an angel. The moment you sit and cry, you're an angel. What controls you is the left line, and then you're stuck in it, or the opposite of that, the right line, meaning you're missing wings. That's it. You're just ready to fly. Both this and that are not this our state. We the I can only be when it's merged from both in order to advance and create something new, completely new. When I take a part of the beastly part, the desire to receive, and a part of the godly part, the desire to bestow, and I want to build from both something new. Something new is the third one. It's truly new. There hasn't been such a thing in reality. We talk about the deficiency. The desire is what exists in spirituality. And here comes a new deficiency, a new desire, altogether, that's just built upon both. But it's new. It turns out that you are giving birth to your soul. You are beating your new state. You are the owner of the action. It's clear that the Creator is bringing you these forces and bringing you all the components of that kli, but you're building this kli. You have no shame after that, really. It's like you to begin with have brought forth this and caused and performed this action. How does a person who exists in the current state can see that? We can be all in all these states and supervise these states in a way that you don't let yourself be in some feeling, bad or good. You must constantly be with our intellect besides our feeling. Should we say both mind and feeling come to balance? Then where it's not more this more than that, or that more than this. If it's more intellect than feeling, then you're smart, you're wise. Why should I do all those things? I never less cat. The Creator is bigger. He'll do, and if not, then no, and what do I care? And so on, and so forth. That's with more intellect than feeling. And if the feeling is more than intellect, then I'm immersed inside my feeling, and the intellect simply can't activate the head. What needs to happen? We need to seek in the society for forces that will help you balance. We have no choice. It's okay. Everything's right. We have a group. But I can sit and scrutinize if it affects me, or a person is constantly under the influence of the society and the influence of all of reality, the universe, the environment, along with it. He must try to constantly connect the 3 points. I, here, and my actions, my present state, so they will be as one. There is no new teaching here. I'm explaining to you the same letter from page 64, the balance between left and right. I have to keep redoing it. Balance between the right line and the left line must be renewed every second. You cannot be ever in imbalance. Spirituality, we talked about it, is something that constantly changes. There are no moments. There's no time in spirituality when I read something and then there's no such thing. If you go, then you're not in that state that you attained. But society has to do the balance all the time. In order to find the strength to balance, you need the society. Yes, because of the barrier is the right line below, and the left line is that the state has going is connecting to the right line called above reason, and connecting to the left line is called within reason or below reason. Right? No, because you do both with complete awareness, complete control. If you are in one of them without your own control over this, it's not above, it's not below, it's simply you are simply sunken under them, and that's it. But the control's in reason. How can I control it? How can you control them? When you know, to begin with, why you're going to the right, then it's called right. If you don't know, but you're in this feeling that controls you, this is not called being in the right. You may be able to call it the shell of the right. It's just that all kinds of states are brought upon you. A right means you determine that this is right for me and I go for it. How do you know that? Now you're going into the right. What is it written? This door is right. That door is left. Come in. No, rather. You choose for yourself things from the sum total that is revealed to you or that you want to reveal, and you say, these things belong to the right. These things in front of me belong to the left. It's not like they are to the right or to the left of you. There's nothing. It's all desires, qualities, thoughts that you divide into right and left. You said that the right line is devotion, above reason. I said that right is called above reason, above the awareness, above the attainment, above the feeling, because right is called importance of the Creator, his desire to do good to his creations, the promise that we will have a reward, that our punishments are corrections, all those things. I don't see them with my own eyes. It's not palpable. It's not something that is revealed to me in the sense. So there is something here that I have to rely on, something that is not in my senses. It has to fill. I have to fill my senses, as if I know it, as if I'm filled with a sensation of the Creator. And then the sensation of the Creator gives me confidence, his importance, everything. I'm not. But I'm not in this feeling. I have to feel my feeling as if I feel the Creator, as if I have come to feel him. Can't understand what he's saying. You're saying this if I'm purportedly in the right line, and with it I go to the left line, and let's say I've come to some prayer, and I come to some state called middle line. The middle line, is it not purportedly, or is it my middle line will also be purportedly? But after a few efforts in this, the Creator will open himself up to me, and then I will really feel his greatness and importance, which will give me the power of real faith, and then I will see both my qualities as actual shells that are truly opposite from the Creator, and to the extent that I feel and see the real him, I will also see my own things in the real way, and then it will be holiness opposite from the shell, and then it will be the real middle line, will be the power of the soul will to receive in order to bestow, meaning will to receive with a screen and reflected light. We have to try several times until we are actually rewarded with it being real and not like a kid's game. Kids also play as if it's true. By this they learn to later be in real actions. What do they need to do after the barrier and what to do before? So before the barrier it's as if we're playing a game. It's a preparation period. That's why it's called this. What do you really have to do in the middle line and then pass the barrier? No, before we cross the barrier, we can't make a real middle line. It cannot be real. Real means I really have qualities of bestowing and receiving. Before I cross the barrier, I don't have it. If my nature is a beastly nature, the nature of this world, it's not real. But if I try and try and try, by trying many times I become experienced, right? And when I, just like at school, we learn, and then we can go to work. He wrote that you also have to use the left line, because right and left are two contradicting lines, because the left is something that needs correction. The left is a matter of criticism, that a person has to really criticize his state and spirituality if he really wants to bestow, or is he cheating himself and doesn't even, or does he not pay attention at all? How can a person be truly objective if he's not in spirituality? I don't even want to answer these questions. Try and see should from the reality we just talked about. It should be clear. You're asking me to give you a feeling. Yes, on one hand, there's existence from absence, which is left, and there's existence from existence on behalf of the Creator. So what is this new thing? Where's that thing between existence from absence and existence from existence? I mean the middle line. Guys, believe me, we have nothing more to say about this. Start working. You'll have questions from the work, and then we'll be able to talk. Very simple. The questions are simply just from the intellect without any experience. Forgive me for saying this, but I can hear it by the question. I feel it's. There's no point talking. That's it. Yes, no, well, how can we be in like doing things what we're saying? Can you give an example from life? Can you give an example what it means to do this? No, I've already given an example from life. I've given enough today about the merging and how to do it, etc. What example from life? Start working and you'll see. What do you mean example from life? Example from life is when I'm in a certain state and I catch myself, stop myself. Where am I? I stopped myself. Now who's there? There's the creator, the goal, the importance, adhesion, desire to do good to his creations, reward and punishment, all those things that we can say about the creator. What do I know? What do I recognize? What do I understand about him? Okay, let's say I thought about it. I was impressed by it. Now I'm going to the left line. Suppose that is who am I? What am I? Compared to his qualities and accordingly and according to what I feel and see about myself. Right, I begin to compare this with this, or maybe this with that, and in every action where I begin to compare now between us, I maintain the balance between them, and from this the prayer will be created so that I with my negative things want to be opposite his positive things. Start even in this way to connect these things inside, and that's it. And then you will be sort of in the middle, between the left and the right, if you can call it left and right. As you know, it's just like kids building sand castles, that's what they do. So let's start building it this way. It's not real, but that's it. Start looking how you can constantly maintaining yourself as me and my goal, being like the creator and the elements he give me on the right side and on the left side for these things to be together. Not that not one will be more than the other, and that I will control that state every time. And afterwards when you do it, you become accustomed to creating this inner state that you're constantly building. You have to build it every moment, right? And it'll change every moment, and you have to rebuild it. It'll change and you have to rebuild it. It's like a missile heading toward the target, and then you try to keep it in all the states you're in life, at store, at work, in bed, while studying, never mind where and what. Try your saying an example from life. This is from life. We say that we need to reach Lishma. First from that to the true force of faith. What is that? True force of faith. What does it mean to receive the real power of faith? Anything that awakens in me. That is opposite, not corrected. Opposite from the creator. Through the power of faith, I can correct it. The power of faith is a sensation of godliness. It's the sensation of wholeness, of eternity, of the importance of the intention to bestow all the things we feel in spirituality or in the creator is giving. It's the quality of the giver, the bestower. The fact that it seems to you now that it's good, it's warm, it's soft. It's I don't know how you feel good. Things so translated into one word, the bestower. Not that he's bestowing upon you, where quality of bestowing is soft, good. That's it. And not towards me that it's soft and good and then I'm the receiver. The quality in itself is like that. And if I want this quality, this is what it should look like. This is what I should look like. Meaning, to take upon myself the quality of the giver, to be the giver, and to feel what I feel. As we're saying soft and warm and good, that it's the same thing. For an exactly against that feeling you're speaking about. The left line, the qualities of the created being. So, it's a feeling that constantly comes to feel what you're saying against the true faith. Okay, well, it sounds like it's contradicting. A few more days, think about it, and we'll talk. What are we learning? Let's share impressions from the lesson. What are we taking to implement in the 10? Okay, I'll begin with the words that are in balance. We can obtain it, specifically in the society. Now we are at a very precious time. Before this lesson, as we heard, the importance of spirituality begins with being thankful for the little things. We have to be thankful for our teachers, for the conditions we have in studying together, for being able to counteract before the other, before each other, and in this annulment, before each other, we can build this new thing, this place, in which we can feel his love for us, and our love for him. So we really need to take our study together seriously. It's not like we have 2 lecturers and we're watching a lesson, but we are studying our highest source from which we can absorb all the greatest changes. And this is the importance of studying. Test. Now we are studying Item 90 in. Item 4 and will. Watch lesson, and the most important is to keep in mind that we're always together. We're yearning to hear to listen together and to feel that it's all about us. And since it's all about us, we have to try to think how we respond to it together. Yeah, and as we go, we're also reading in our books. Each one can write down things they hear in the lesson. It's so important to put in the book what we're hearing from. So we're reading Test Part 1, Chapter 1. We're speaking about the inner light 90. There's a long text that we're going to read in the lesson 2 and after it a very deep explanation by, so it's important to hold the book be with and together and obviously with the whole 10. Let's watch the lesson. Study of the tense. Part 1. We are in item 90 of item 3-4 of the words of the array. Item 90 explains that restriction was even meaning, without distinction of great or small degrees. We could ask that since the disparity of form in the middle point had already been revealed by the departure of the light from it, consequently, the smaller measures were necessarily recognized as well, one smaller than the other to the extent of the disparity of form within the prior 3 degrees. Where phase 3, for example, is more refined than the middle point, because the measure of her will to receive is less than in phase 4. Similarly, phase 2 is more refined than phase 3 because her measure of desire is smaller than phase 3. And phase 1 is the most refined of all, for she has the least will to receive, which is why her disparity of form is not as evident as in them. Thus there is a differentiation of great and small in the degrees. Hence, why does the AR say that the restriction was even around that point? The answer is that the restriction did not make the middle point into a soft end. In other words, if the light had departed from the point because of the disparity of form in it, it would have become a soft because of it, meaning the lowest degree of which there is none that are lower. Then we would also regard the 3 preceding phrases as more important than the middle point, as one above the other. However, it was not so, for the restriction did not occur due to the disparity of form in the point. This cannot be, for we are still dealing with in which there is no disparity of form between it and the light, as they are both in simple unity, meaning he is one and he and his name are one. Rather, the restriction occurred only because a simple desire was to create the worlds. This means that he yearned for that equivalence of form which is destined to be revealed by the creation of the worlds, meaning the form of reception, in order to bestow contentment to the Maker. There is a great virtue in that. On the one hand, it is complete bestow, because the desire is only to bestow contentment upon the Maker and not at all for one's own needs. That makes the form completely equal to the upper light of the Nature and in complete adhesion with him. On the other hand, it is possible to deepen and increase his vessels of reception indefinitely and eternally, since now the form of reception does not create any disparity of form as it comes from the desire to bestow. Our sages have said that with an important person, if she gives the matrimony capital, and he says with this either sanctify, then she is sanctified. It is written in the Torah and gives it in her hand, meaning it is the husband who must give the matrimony capital. Nevertheless, because he is an important person, the pleasure she receives from him is exactly the same as giving. Where are we exactly? First of all, says that according to the plan of creation, the light creates a desire. In the light, we have a deficiency that came existence from absence. The light develops that desire, and it reaches 4 phases of development from the root till phase 4. So there are degrees of coarseness. Here that this will to receive the will becomes thicker, more coarse, and only in phase 4 it feels itself this desire, that it's against the light. Therefore that there are levels of coarseness. Otherwise how could we talk about discernments? Discernments according to what? Or if it's not different from the light? Well, different. Obviously phase 2 is already different from the light. It even resists the light. It doesn't want to receive like phase 1 that the light created phase 1, so it receives. So phase 1 you could say it's like the light that created it. Not that it itself is like the light that created it, but it does exactly what the light wants from her. So she's adhered to the light just like A baby is adhered to the mother. It's not the mother. It's something different from her, but is adhered to her completely because there's nothing of itself. So there's adhesion on behalf of the small coarseness that still isn't revealed, but it's just as receiving above it from birth. That's why there's adhesion phase 2. And what does it adhere? To the light that works on her. It's not according to the fact that the desire doesn't understand who or what it is. It does understand who and what it is, and it wants to adhere to the light. It already ascends on its behalf towards the light. That new desire. I want to be a bestower like him. So there's adhesion from phase 2 towards the light. In phase 3, there's a greater coarseness. But on that greater coarseness, there's also adhesion to the light. That it's the action of bestow. An additional coarseness is revealed, but this additional coarseness is willing to receive in order to bestow. This is phase 2 building phase 3. That's why there's adhesion to the light in phase 3. And all these forms of adhesion to the light actually come from the light itself, from the state of the root. That's why you can't say in these forms that there's any created being, because the way the coarseness develops, there are still stages that even though it feels itself, right away it also feels that it's adhered. There's nothing that separates between it and the light in phase 1, even though it's me, but who am I? I'm entirely like an embryo in the mother. Phase 2, right. It's me and I'm not him. He's giving, I'm receiving, but I want to be like him. So there's also adhesion. In phase 3, I have coarseness. I'm something completely different, but in my action, I'm willing to receive just to be like him with this additional coarseness, meaning there are degrees here. It's like a paradox that it's very interesting. On one hand, the coarseness grows. On the other hand, these discernments are still adhered to the light. That's why we only discern phase 4 as being special, that when the coarseness is revealed in her, stop. Now I'm completely different from the light. That's why phase 4 is called independent, a vessel created being the central point, and so on, because it can't. In the desire revealed in her and the discernments revealed in her, she cannot hold herself. And that's restriction. That's what she restricts. That discernment. She doesn't need to restrict something that a deficiency isn't revealed, only where she discovers the gap between her and the emanator, and that discernment, that's where the restriction happens. Right, so in phase 4 there's coarseness, let's say, between 3 and 4 such coarseness. That, in the difference between this coarseness phase 3 and 4 that's revealed, that's the gap between created being and the creator. We also see it later in the world of phase 3. It's called the upper force and mal is called the lower force. So all in all, this is a and this is a. Note, phase 3 still belongs to the creator. His relation is the closest thing to the created being, and that's where something is revealed that is called the created being. Not that there's a bit of a created being in them. There are only roots for the created being that will come in phase 4. That's why phase 4, and only in that discernment that she discovers after all the discernments that you can't choose specifically, discovers a gap between her and the light, and that restriction is that discernment is what gets restricted. And as we talked about, just as the development was equally, also the restriction was equal, and phase 4 remains as the black, empty point, and all the area around towards her we're speaking is only from phase 4 itself towards her. It becomes empty. She can't feel the light because the light brings her feeling of shame and that gap, and she wants to correct that state. That's one thing. The other thing, so how can she correct if in all the previous states there was adhesion? There was adhesion here. Naturally, that the abilities, such instances where Malot did some action in return, some instinct, naturally, and adhere to the creator, even though there is a gap here. Between 1 and 2 there's a difference. Between 2 and 3, but right away on, that feeling of a gap in action happens. That doesn't even depend on the created being, only naturally it happened. But here, to perform adhesion in what's revealed, between 3 and 4 Mal already needs to build a whole system of herself in order to reach that adhesion, because the gap that's revealed here is revealed in her coarseness. That comes with her intention. She's opposite of the creator. She wants to receive naturally the pleasures. That's fine. That's what the Creator created, but she's only interested in them and nothing else. That gap is revealed here as the intention in a way that you cannot stand this. We learned this in test in part 2 where he explains that there are 4 degrees of. There's wanting and intending. So there's wanting and intending, not wanting, not intending, intending and doesn't want, and wants and doesn't intend. And then phase 4, wants and intend to receive, to enjoy. That's why she's the end of the development of the vessel on behalf of the Creator. So in order to perform this attention in phase 4, not like in the first 3 phases, she needs now to think, how can I perform attention if my intention is to myself? So then Ballasam brings an example from the where it says that if there's a great man compared to someone smaller, that the smaller that receives is called a woman, the big one who gives is called a man, and they get married, meaning they want to connect. So the big one gives to the small. That's obvious that in this he brings love. The small one brings to the big one. Obviously by this he expresses the love to the big one. But how can they be partners? How can they connect? So they say this, that when there's a connection between them, it's enough that the small one gives to the big one. If the big one is willing to accept from the little one because he's big, so the deed is from the lower one to the upper one, and the action will be from the big to the little. We are constantly receiving from the Creator, constantly. There's no other way from above downward. How can I give him? What can I give him? An ability to bestow upon me. So I'm putting a condition. I'm restricting myself. The first restriction, and I'm saying I do not want to receive from you directly. This action of receiving the light, I can't. It gives me a feeling that I'm not adhere to you, that I don't love you. If I restrict myself, and after the restriction I will open myself only under the condition that my reception will be as bestowed to you because you love me and want to bestow. So then you'll know, and I will know, that I am in love and equivalence of form towards you. Here we have this opening to reach equivalence and adhesion. That's why the first action right away, after uplifted in the desire to adhere to the Creator, that's the first action, the restriction. After the restriction, I can determine when to open myself and when to close, that the opening and closing, closing, that's called the intention, and my desire is always the will to receive all of, but I need now to open myself or close, according to what I'm able to enjoy in order to give him pleasure. So I open or close myself to the extent of the right intention that I acquire. That's all the work, in order to be sure I'm doing it correctly. So I build a system, a ladder of degrees, a ladder of worlds. I open a bit of the door, a bit more, a bit less, that I will control it. That, God forbid, I won't just ruin myself and suddenly open too much, and I'll receive in order to receive. Meaning after the first restriction, I need to build a cascading of intentions, and against the receptions, as much as I receive according to my intention, and that will actually be built as a ladder of degrees. After that, I also need to make sure I have to be concerned about my desire. Do I truly understand it? Suddenly I reach a state in building these relationships as much as to open the door according to the intention and desire, that I don't really understand my desires, what they're telling me. What do they want from me? What do I myself want? Then when I check the connection between the dolls and desires, I mistake theirs, a place to make a mistake on purpose, in order for my desire to be more scrutinized. Then when I enter the shattering, and I need to correct myself, and in that correction I finally reach a state that I know how to hold my gate, my opening, if against a desire. So that's what we'll learn later, and it's not that important now. What is important is that Malat found for herself right away after she felt the problem in receiving. She found for herself right away a solution. Oh, it's not that instant. The revelation itself comes from a state contradicting between the light and the desire that came from. There's another very important development here that we can't really explain, that the light fills the desire even though the desire is against the light, and by this the desire starts feeling what it actually needs to do. Because, before the restriction, until she feels the shame as intolerable and restricts herself, so the light fills her, and the light gives her a feeling of adhesion, until she herself doesn't determine that it isn't adhesion. Then from that state, on behalf of the light, it's adhesion, and for my behalf I see that it's not adhesion, but even the contrary, it's completely disparity of form. From the gap between those discernment she finds a solution, and then this whole process gets clarified, the small towards the big, or the bride towards the important groom, and the restriction takes place, and the development to the latter of the worlds. Yes, friends, we found a very profound explanation by about the restriction and the whole process leading to it. Let's take questions and start scrutinizing through the questions. It's very important to listen to each question of each friend, because through him everything is revealed. I wanted to ask about the first restriction. There are a few explanations why it's happening here. He said it's because he wanted to create the worlds. We also hear about the shame and the adornment. So what is the reason for restriction, and who is doing that action, the created being or the creator? We can go back to where we read. That's always the simplest from the words, because of restriction. I'm reading because the restriction was not done because of the disparity of form. This is impossible, since we're still dealing with Mar and S, where there is no disparity of form between it and the light, which are both in simple unity, as he and his name are one. Rather, the restriction was only because it came in his simple will to create the worlds, meaning he yearned for the equivalence of form that was destined to be revealed by the creation of the worlds, meaning the form of reception in order to bestow. And also question 78. The question is, so 78. There are a few questions here, but 78 is the first one. What is the reason for the restriction of the light? Is asking, what is the reason for the restriction of the light? The answer. He says this: regarded the equivalence of form with her maker as an embellishment, which could only be achieved by the creation of the world. This is why she restricted herself. Again, what is the reason for the restriction of the light? Answer. Regarded herself. Regarded the equivalence of form with her maker as an embellishment, which could only be achieved by the creation of the worlds. This is why she restricted herself. And also 85. Question 85. Why did phase 4 not become coarse immediately at the restriction of the light, but rather all 4 phases remained equal? Again, why did phase 4 not become coarse immediately at the restriction of the light, but rather all 4 phases remained equal? Answer. Because the restriction did not occur due to a disparity of form. Because restriction did not occur due to a disparity of form. So, he says that the restriction was because of the embellishment, and in 85 he says it was because of the disparity of form. We also have 88, which regards the restriction. 88. What caused the creation of the worlds? Again, what caused the creation of the worlds? The will that is necessarily there had a desire to embellish itself and resemble the form of the light completely, and that became the cause for the creation of the world. Again, the will that is necessarily there had a desire to embellish itself and resemble the form of the light completely, and that became the cause for the creation of the worlds. Meaning, we see that the embellishment and the lack of the disparity of form is what created the world. Another excerpt I found. But first, it's important for us to feel that we are reading together. We're going together with them according to what he writes for us. Let's read this excerpt. It's on the same topic of the embellishment in the inner observation, item 55. This thing together that we want to feel more and more how much we are in this common effort going together with our teacher. We're going to read it slowly because it's not certain that the translators can find the point. So we're going to read it very slowly. We'll try to things that 66 inner observation, item 55. The restriction was not because of the inferiority of phase 4, but only because of an embellishment. The thing is that the restriction of the light from phase 4 was not because of its inferiority. God forbid, because we're still dealing with Mut, where there was phase 4 as light of itself. And now is it possible to even think that the restriction was because of the inferiority of phase 4? Rather, the restriction was only because of an embellishment that Malat yearned for adhesion in the highest elevation, to completely adhere to the inator, which is the matter of equivalent. Complete equivalence of form with the inator. Therefore, the merit of faith for did not decrease after the restriction too. We also heard in the lesson about this opening that phase 4 must discover about the intention and the gap between it and the 4 phases that preceded it, and the 4 phases as much as they are different discernments from each other. There was adhesion in each and every phase, adhesion with the upper one in phase 4 by which it is distinguished from the 3 phases. This is what she lacked. It lacked adhesion with the upper one, feeling the absolute opposeness from the upper light, and that's the reason for the restriction by which all the worlds were created, only for this form of reception. That's all the innovation. This is the opening. We have to discover the form of reception in order to bestow. The restriction sounds critical in the process of development. Why is it called embellishment? Embellishment sounds to us like it's not important. Afterwards we learned with Rob, that it's the gravest of the grave. Why? Embellishment. Where does it come from? We must remember that the starting point of malhood in its development from above downward before its reaction, which is called embellishment, is called heat, and his name are one. He and his name are one. Explains his name in Gamashir, his desire, meaning he and the desire he created are one, in complete unity. This is also, it's called also secret. It's not clear. There's something much deeper. Have gives an explanation at the end of the lesson he just gave us. He writes, this we will learn later. He says there's another very important development here that we cannot really explain, that the light fills a desire even though the desire is contradictory to the light that sees and his name are one, and by this the desire begins to feel what it really needs to do. So there is something here that on the one hand the Creator created the will to receive in phase 1, then it developed into 2, 3, and 4, etc. Allah explains that this entire cascading from above downward is a cascading of light and vessel together. There is still no coarseness, there's no gap between the light and the vessel. It is 4 discernments in a direct light until phase 4. Phase 4 too is also called no limitation. But he also tells us that the light has a quality of only bestowal, and that Mut has a quality of only reception. Now someone should come and discern this, to see the gap and want to make up for it. So, in terms of the nature she was created, and she doesn't have another desire in order to receive. She wants to receive. So it's not clear if she was created as the will to receive that completes the development. The Creator created the will to receive, which receives from him all the abundance, and that completes everything. But you could say that also about phase 1. What happened at the end of phase 1? The light by its own quality of bestowal caused phase 1 to want to also be a giver like itself, and that turned phase 1 into phase 2. And the light that fills phase 2 is the same light, but its relation now has changed. Now it wants to give back to it. This is why it calls that lightedom. Phase 1 is called phase 2. Is called. This is how it develops in 3 and 4, and in phase 4 it's incomplete wholeness, except that a desire arises in it as writes it arose in his will to create the worlds. Why? Because Malat feels within it that by being a receiver it cannot really bring contentment to the root to the Creator. Now she wants an addition, something that was not created in her. She wants something more to be like him, meaning to bring him contentment as he brings her contentment. That additional something that doesn't exist in her nature. Of course, it's all in the plan of creation and the thought of creation, but from the perspective of the created being, it's revealed as something new. So what's the example that gives the rich man who meets his friend once? They were friends, now he's very rich and the other is very poor, and the rich man says to the poor, you want something from me? Anything you want, he gives him. everything he wants, everything, all the pleasures, and as a result the poor man receives, and in the end he asks him, "You want something more?" He says, "Yes, I want you also to let me be like you, a giver." What does the rich man tell him? "There is not been, no man has created who can give this to you. It's not for me. Now you have to do it." So it's seemingly coming from. So that's exactly the meaning of he's one, and his. He and his name are one. This is what Love said at the end of the clip. On the one hand, the light is all about giving. The will to receive only gives. So how are they in adhesion? They're in adhesion because that's the desire of the Creator to create the will to receive. But that will to receive wants to be like the giver, wants to be like the rich man. The poor man wants to be like the rich one. So this is now coming from him. That's called embellishment. Embellishment is something you put on the outside that is not inside of you. It's outside of you. Why did Zanin? In Zarin, there's an example that the desire wanted to resemble the Creator, so he could expect his development to begin with. Already knows how to receive in order to bestow. He could have passed this knowledge to Mal, so why doesn't it happen? We haven't read about it. It's something that should happen. That's the whole meaning of that. Zahan is the Creator, is the upper one of Mut, and from him can receive both power and to also learn how to bestow all of our requests. Raises to the upper one is the vessel that elevates all the man of the lower one. If we're speaking about of direct light, so that it's still not in order to bestow. So it's not receiving in order to be still, because in order to can only be after there's a screen, a restriction screen and reflected light. That's called an order to. Why does receive? The reason is that it receives in 4 phases of direct light is because Biner wants to bestow is the reason. Since she wants to bestow, so she checks how can she bestow, and she says I can bestow to the Creator only in one way. He doesn't need my bestow. He wants to give. He wants someone to receive from him. That's why she decides to receive, to use the will to receive that was created in her in phase 1. That's why there's still no in order to. Direct light doesn't call it to receive in order to bestow. It's called that. Bina wants to bestow, and her form of bestow is by deciding to be the receiver. That's why in the light of still controls, there's not that full expression of the will to receive yet, but she uses what does it mean a bit to receive. That's also a question, right? We say that there's the light of mercy with the illumination of why don't we say all the why only an illumination of what she only uses a bit of the wall to receive, not all of it. So the reason is that she uses the entire world to receive. Everything in phase 1 is received in phase 3. It's not a bit, but because the motive, the reason for receiving the light is the light of. That's why it's called that. It's with illumination of, because the main thing, the main part is the light of. That's why it's just an expression of. That's why it's called small. It's a small part of a bit. Just Sava explained first that it's not a bit if there's everything in there, but the reason for receiving is wanting to bestow. That's why it's called a bit of, and what causes to become exactly that. That now after reaches its end, what it discovers is that it has to be entirely receiving, because the light supposedly disturbs him from being the receiver. He only wants to be in the quality of reception, because that's the desire of the Creator, and that turns into and isn't to receive in order to bestow, and it has nothing to teach, because in Mal something happens that isn't in. Again, there's a control of the light of, the control of the will to receive. That's why it's called, because the desire to receive controls her, not like in that the light of controls it. That's why also from that reason, afterwards in the rest of the development we see that as no we say, it's with no why, because it is in the reason for its action is not. So you see that everything we learn later on in the world stems from that point of the 4 phases of direct light. That's why also every time we don't understand something somewhere in test, it's worth to always go back to the 4 phases of direct light and ask what's happening there. That's how we can understand the reason of everything that's happening in that development. PT100 has a question. We can't refuse them. Yeah, thank you for the privilege to ask a question. If the intention, the right intention, even comes from the light according to my plea, So before I received the intention, who exactly made me ask for it, and the desire to ask that it also come from the Creator. So can we say, that is there any action a person does himself? You're asking if theirs is there something that a person does by himself, if everything comes from the light. Yeah, also the desire from the to ask came from the Creator. So can we say that there's any action that a person actually does himself, can without contact with the Creator? Yes, a person can choose at this moment what environment he wants. That will bring him to a state where he will be able to hold on, hang on to. There's none else besides him to the feeling that the Creator does everything. Let's say a person is in a state, in some state, never mind where he feels that everything is done by the light. It doesn't mean that in a moment later he'll have the same feeling. So now he has to choose an environment, attendance, to listen to, read him, that will bring him that he will be able to hang on to there's none else besides him and not lose it. Also we heard in the lesson that specifically Malat the Walter is called the individual face, so and what is she in independent if she's not an Artesian, so also in her disparity of form, which is the worthy state to be in. There's no desire and there's no intention, but she feels it. That deficiency exists in her, that gap is felt in her, so that's what we need, to feel the feeling of the gap, that only the feeling of the gap can bring the necessity for contact with the upper one. And as we hear, everything depends on the deficiency. What does that mean? A complete deficiency. Because Malat is the collective of the souls, each one of us has a part in that Malat, and we must concentrate our desire to be whole, to have a complete desire for adhesion. That's the reason we have to incorporate in one another. That's why we need a group that in it we can, together, to acquire a big whole. Deficiency for adhesion. It's not really a question. I just wanted to add that we read about the 4 phases of the red light. You said, embellishment like an addition. The whole idea was to cover for the shame that was revealed from the giver, which is the reason for the first restriction, and building more systems inside phase 4, this big engine of covering the shame. And initially it sounds egoistic, but she doesn't have a choice, and hence comes the feeling of shame from the direct light. I just wanted to mention it. Yeah, that's correct. It demands a deeper explanation what you're saying, because all in all everywhere writes that the reason for the restriction is not the shame, but the adornment, the embellishment. By wanting to decorate herself, she starts checking what is phase 3, who created it, until she reaches the gap between her and the root. And there the shame is revealed, and there the restriction happens. But the reason isn't the shame, but the beginning of the reason is the adornment, the embellishment, which is an addition, not because of shame, but because of the addition and the need for the embellishment. Where does it come from? Because the 4 phases of the rectal in wholeness. There's no difference between the light and the will to receive. They work together, one completely equal, exactly right. Where does the need to embellish come from? Because as it's written, it came up in its desire. She wants that decoration. Now, you're not saying that the source for it is shame. No, the shame is revealed after Mal starts checking in what she can adorn herself, and then she discovers the gap between her and the Creator. But in he and his name is one. There is no shame there. There's no coarseness there. There's no gap between the Creator and created being there. She's in wholeness. The coarseness begins after the first restriction, after there's a relation from the emanator to the emanated being to the anator. After that there is our voice of coarseness and the screen and all that. Before that these systems don't exist. Correct. You're right. It's just that I thought that the embellishment, the root of it is the shame. You're saying it comes afterwards. The matter of shame.